The auction hall stretched endlessly beneath the crystalline dome of Zarian Prime's capital. Thousands of alien dignitaries filled the tiered seats, their various forms creating a rainbow of scales, fur, and exotic matter. At the center of it all stood a single platform, bathed in harsh white light. Kiera stood on that platform, chains of energy binding her wrists. She kept her chin high despite the weight of defeat pressing on her shoulders. The last free human in the galaxy, they called her. The final prize of a war that had raged for 3 decades across 100 star systems. The auctioneer, a serpentine creature with too many eyes, slithered forward. Its voice echoed through translation devices in 1,000 different languages. Behold, the ultimate trophy of our victory. The last human military commander, captured after the fall of Terra's final fortress moon. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some species clicked their mandibles in anticipation. Others released pheromones of excitement that made the air shimmer. The galactic hegemony had spent untold resources hunting down humanity's scattered resistance. Now, their triumph was complete. Or so they believed. Kiera allowed herself a small smile, one that didn't reach her eyes. They thought they understood humans. Thought they had cataloged their weaknesses after years of war. The hegemony had superior numbers, better technology, and the combined might of 50 species. But they had made one critical error. They had never truly understood what made humans dangerous. The bidding began at 10 million energy credits. Within moments, it had soared past 100 million. Warlords shouted over each other. Corporate dynasties sent frantic messages to their financial departments. Everyone wanted to own the last human, to display her as proof of their species' contribution to the great victory. Through it all, Kiera remained silent, watching, waiting. Her enhanced hearing picked up something the aliens couldn't detect, a subsonic frequency threading through the auction hall's systems, a frequency that matched the rhythm of a human heartbeat. The Vrixian delegate raised a tentacle. 1 billion credits. The Saurian Empire countered immediately. 2 billion. Plus mining rights to the human homeworld. Kiera's fingers twitched slightly. The movement was so small that only someone watching very carefully would have noticed. Someone like the hooded figure seated in the back row, whose face was hidden but whose posture was unmistakably human. The auctioneer's eyes swiveled in different directions, tracking the escalating bids. Magnificent. The human female's value exceeds even our highest estimates. If only they knew, Kiera thought. If only they understood that every human ship they had destroyed, every colony they had raised, every soldier they had killed, all of it had been calculated. All of it had been necessary. The hegemony believed in overwhelming force. They had conquered galaxy after galaxy by simply being bigger, stronger, more numerous than their opponents. When they encountered humanity, they had expected another easy victory. After all, humans had only recently achieved faster-than-light travel. They possessed a mere handful of colony worlds. Their military was laughably small, compared to the hegemony's vast armadas. But humans had something the hegemony had never encountered before: the ability to lose on purpose. 5 billion credits, screamed a crystalline being, whose body chimed with each movement. The crowd grew frenzied. Kiera saw delegates literally fighting in the stands, each desperate to claim her. The last human. The living symbol of their superiority. Her internal chronometer marked the time. 17 hours since her capture. Exactly on schedule. The hooded figure in the back row stood up. The movement was subtle, but Kiera had been watching for it. Around the auction hall, she noticed other figures rising as well. Maintenance workers, security personnel, servers, all moving with a particular economy of motion that betrayed their true nature. The hegemony had spent 30 years hunting humans across the stars. They had developed sensors that could detect human DNA from orbit. They had created algorithms to predict human tactical thinking. They had even tried to understand human psychology, dissecting their literature and culture for weaknesses, but they had never asked the right question. They had never wondered why humans, faced with an unwinnable war, had kept fighting anyway. 10 billion credits. The shout came from the hegemony's own High Chancellor, a being of pure energy, contained within a mechanical shell. The human will be displayed in the capital as a reminder of what happens to those who resist the natural order. Kiera's smile widened slightly. The natural order. That's what they called their empire of conquest and subjugation. They couldn't conceive of any other way. The strong dominated the weak, the many overwhelmed the few. It was the law of the universe, written in the stars themselves. Humans had a different philosophy. The first sign of trouble came from the auction hall's environmental systems. The temperature dropped by a fraction of a degree, not enough to alarm anyone, but enough to signal that someone had accessed the controls. Next, the lights flickered. Just for a millisecond. The hegemony's technology was flawless. Their power systems triple redundant. Lights didn't flicker, unless someone wanted them to. The auctioneer's many eyes began swiveling nervously. Technical difficulties. Honored guests. Please remain calm while... The explosion, when it came, was almost gentle. A soft thump that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The crystalline dome overhead developed a spider web of cracks, each one spreading with mathematical precision. Panic erupted in the crowd. Delegates screamed in their various languages. Security forces rushed toward the exits, only to find them sealed. The energy chains binding. Kiera's wrists flickered and died. She stretched luxuriously, working out the kinks in her shoulders. Around the auction hall, the disguised humans threw off their covers. Each one wore the black uniform of Earth's special operations, thought destroyed years ago. The hooded figure vaulted from the back row with inhuman grace, landing on the auction platform beside Kiera. When the hood fell back, it revealed a scarred face she knew well. "Admiral Chen," Kiera said calmly. "Right on time." Chen handed her a pulse rifle. "Captain, ready to finish this?" The hegemony delegates were screaming now, calling for their fleets, their armies, their vast military might. None of them understood yet. None of them realized that while they had been conquering human worlds, while they had been winning every battle, they had been losing the war, because humans had learned long ago that sometimes the only way to win was to convince your enemy they had already won. The dome shattered completely, revealing the night sky of Zerion Prime. But instead of stars, the sky was filled with human ships. Thousands of them. Tens of thousands. More appearing every second as they dropped out of hyperspace. The impossible fleet. The fleet that couldn't exist because the hegemony had destroyed Earth's shipyards. The fleet that couldn't have been built because humans lacked the resources. The fleet that couldn't have been hidden because the hegemony's sensors were too advanced. Unless, of course, the humans had wanted to be found. Had wanted their worlds burned. Had sacrificed billions of lives to convince the hegemony that humanity was beaten, all to gather the enemy's leadership in one place, all to make them lower their guard, all to spring a trap 30 years in the making. Kiera activated her rifle and turned to face the terrified crowd. "Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted life forms," she announced, her voice carrying clearly through the chaos. "On behalf of the United Earth Resistance, I'm pleased to inform you that your auction is cancelled." The High Chancellor's energy form pulsed with rage. "This is impossible. We destroyed you. We hunted every last human ship. We burned your worlds. You destroyed what we wanted you to destroy," Chen replied. "You hunted the ships we wanted you to find. You burned empty worlds while we built our real strength in the spaces between stars." Kiera stepped forward, addressing the entire assembly. "You believed you were the apex predators of the galaxy, but you forgot something crucial about humanity. We're persistence hunters. We don't need to be stronger, or faster, or more advanced. We just need to outlast you." Human soldiers were flooding the auction hall now, efficiently disabling weapons and securing delegates. "No killing," Kiera noted with approval. That had been another human innovation that baffled the hegemony. Mercy in victory. 30 years, she continued, her voice growing stronger. 30 years of calculated defeats. 30 years of strategic losses. 30 years of letting you think you were winning while we prepared for this moment. You thought you were hunting us. In reality, we were hurting you. The implications were beginning to dawn on the hegemony delegates. If the humans had this many ships, if they had been planning this all along, then everything the hegemony thought they knew about the war was wrong. Every battle you won weakened your forces, Chen added. Every human world you occupied spread your fleets thinner. Every resource you spent hunting us was a resource you couldn't use to defend yourselves. And now, at your moment of supposed triumph, you've gathered all your leadership here, on one world, under one dome. The High Chancellor's form flickered wildly. You sacrificed billions of your own people for this? Kiera's expression hardened. Every human who died knew what they were dying for. They weren't victims. They were soldiers in the longest, most complex military operation in human history. They died to ensure humanity's survival. She raised her rifle toward the ceiling, where human dropships were beginning their descent. You see, that's what you never understood about us. Humans don't fight wars to win battles. We fight wars to win the peace that comes after. And we're very, very patient. The auction hall had become a processing center. Hegemony leaders were being tagged, cataloged, and prepared for transport. Not as prisoners, exactly. More like involuntary guests who would help rebuild a new galactic order. Chen touched Kiera's shoulder. The fleet awaits your orders, Admiral. Admiral. She'd been promoted while playing the role of prisoner. Kiera took a deep breath, feeling the weight of command settle on her shoulders. The real war was just beginning. Not a war of conquest, but of reconstruction. Humanity would have to prove they were better than the empire they had just toppled. Signal all ships, she commanded. Phase 2 begins now. We have a galaxy to rebuild. As human forces secured the last of the delegates, Kiera allowed herself a moment of reflection. The hegemony had thought they were bidding on humanity's last survivor. Instead, they had been participating in their own defeat. She looked up through the shattered dome at the human fleet filling the sky. Each ship represented years of hidden construction, of desperate hope, of absolute faith in a plan too audacious to believe. The war's final prize wasn't her. It never had been. It was them. The command center of the Times, Persistence Times, hummed with controlled chaos. Dozens of human officers worked at holographic displays, coordinating the most complex military operation in human history. Admiral Kiera stood at the center of it all, watching as humanity's hidden fleet systematically dismantled the hegemony's power structure. 3 days had passed since the auction hall incident. 3 days that had shattered everything the galaxy thought it knew about the war. Status report, Kiera commanded, her eyes never leaving the main tactical display. Commander Yuki stepped forward, datapad in hand. All primary hegemony command worlds are under our control. Their fleet assets are scattered and leaderless. Individual species are already sending peace overtures. Casualties? Minimal on both sides, as planned. The psychological warfare protocols are working perfectly. Most hegemony forces surrender as soon as they realize the scope of our operation. Kiera nodded. This had always been the goal, victory without genocide. The hegemony had never understood that concept. To them, winning meant the complete destruction of the enemy. Humans had a different idea. Admiral, Chen called from the intelligence station. We're getting some interesting readings from the prisoner interviews. You need to see this. Kiera moved to his console, where transcripts scrolled past in multiple languages. The hegemony leaders were talking, and what they were saying was illuminating. They genuinely believed they had won, Chen explained. Look at this, internal communications from their high command. They were already dividing up human territories, arguing over who would get Earth's oceans for resource extraction. Arrogance was always their weakness, Kiera mused. They couldn't conceive of anyone purposely losing. In their worldview, strength always prevails. A young ensign approached nervously. Admiral, the High Chancellor is requesting an audience. It says it has information vital to humanity's survival. Kiera considered this. The being of pure energy had been contained in a specially designed cell, its powers neutralized but its consciousness intact. Of all the hegemony leaders, it was the most dangerous, and potentially the most useful. Set up the meeting, she decided. Full security protocols. And Chen, you're with me. The conference room had been stripped of anything that could be used as a weapon or tool. The High Chancellor's containment field glowed in the center, its energy form rippling with what might have been anxiety or rage. Admiral Kiera, the Chancellor's synthesized voice resonated. I congratulate you on your deception. It was masterfully executed. You didn't request this meeting to praise us, Kiera replied, taking a seat across from the containment field. What information do you have? The energy being pulsed. You think you've won. You've defeated the hegemony, captured our leaders, scattered our fleets. But you don't understand what you've done. Chen's hand moved to his sidearm, but Kiera gestured for him to wait. Enlighten us. The hegemony wasn't just an empire, the Chancellor explained. We were a shield, a barrier against something far worse. Why do you think we were so obsessed with order, with control? Why did we crush every species that showed signs of unusual development? Kiera leaned forward, intrigued despite herself. Go on. There are things between the stars, the Chancellor continued. Ancient things, hungry things. The hegemony's expansion wasn't just about conquest. It was about maintaining a perimeter. Every world we controlled, every species we subjugated, was another lock on a prison you can't imagine. Convenient, Chen scoffed. The conquerors were actually protectors all along. How noble. But Kiera was studying the Chancellor's energy patterns. She had dealt with enough alien species to recognize genuine fear when she saw it. You're not lying. You believe this, because it's true. The Chancellor's form flared brighter. 3,000 years ago, before the hegemony existed, the galaxy was a very different place. There were older civilizations then, races that had achieved technologies that bordered on magic. They delved too deep into the fundamental nature of reality. They woke something that should have stayed sleeping. Kiera exchanged a glance with Chen. This wasn't in any of their intelligence reports. And these things, where are they now? Contained. Barely. The hegemony's entire structure was designed to maintain the seals. Every hyperspace beacon, every monitoring station, every fleet patrol route, all of it was calculated to keep the barriers intact. And you've just dismantled it all. The room fell silent. If this was true, humanity might have won the war, only to doom the entire galaxy. Show me proof, Kiera demanded. The Chancellor's form shifted. Interface me with your ship's computer. Carefully. I'll transfer the coordinates of the primary seal. Send a probe. See for yourself. But whatever you do not approach with crewed vessels. After extensive security precautions, they allowed the transfer. The coordinates pointed to a region of space that appeared empty on all star charts. A place where no trade routes ran, where no colonies had ever been established. Kiera ordered a stealth probe launched immediately. While they waited for it to arrive, she convened an emergency meeting of her senior staff. It could be a trap, General Morrison argued. One last manipulation to make us second-guess ourselves. Or it could be the truth, countered Dr. Ava Singh, the fleet's chief xenobiologist. We've seen references in captured hegemony databases to something called the primary directive. Always heavily encrypted, always classified beyond even their highest military clearances. Admiral Chen pulled up a holographic display. I've been analyzing their fleet deployments over the past 1,000 years. Look at this. There's a pattern. Certain regions of space are always guarded, even when it makes no tactical sense. As if they're not keeping people out, but keeping something in. Kiera absorbed all the information, her mind racing. This was why she had been chosen to lead humanity's shadow fleet. Not just for her tactical brilliance, but for her ability to adapt to the unexpected. Continue the takeover as planned, she ordered. But quietly investigate these claims. If there's even a chance the Chancellor is telling the truth, we need to be prepared. Hours passed. The probe approached the coordinates, its sensors reaching out into what should have been empty space. The main screen in the conference room showed its telemetry in real time, picking up gravitational anomalies. The sensor officer reported, "Massive ones. But there's nothing visible." Switching to exotic particle detection, another officer added, "By the void. Admiral, you need to see this." The screen changed, showing a view that defied comprehension. Space itself was wrong in that region. Twisted, folded, and at the center of the distortion was something that hurt to perceive even through filtered sensors. It wasn't a ship or a structure. It was a scar, in reality itself, held closed by a network of devices that pulsed with familiar energy signatures. Hegemony technology. But ancient, far older than the Empire itself. "The seal is failing," the Chancellor said quietly. "Without constant maintenance, without the precise harmonic frequencies generated by our monitoring stations, it will break within a solar rotation. Perhaps less." Kiera stared at the impossible sight. "What exactly is being contained?" "We called them the Devourers," the Chancellor replied. "Though that's a poor translation. They exist partially outside our dimensional framework. When they enter our reality fully, they consume not just matter and energy, but the fundamental information that defines existence. Entire star systems simply cease to have ever been." "How do we fight them?" Chen asked. "You don't. The ancient races tried. They had weapons that could shatter planets, ships that could dive through stars. None of it mattered. The only solution was containment. The seal." Kiera's mind was already shifting gears, adapting to this new threat. "How many seals are there?" 17 primary seals, 43 secondary ones. All interconnected. If one fails, the others weaken. The hegemony spent 3,000 years perfecting the containment network. "And we have less than a month to learn it," Kiera murmured. She turned to her staff. "New priority. We need every piece of hegemony technology related to these seals. Every technician who worked on them. Every scrap of data about their maintenance." "Admiral," Dr. Singh interjected, "if this threat is real, shouldn't we warn the other species? The remnants of the hegemony fleet?" "No," Kiera decided. "Not yet. Panic would only make things worse. We control their infrastructure now. We'll maintain the seals while we figure out a permanent solution." The Chancellor's form rippled with what might have been surprise. "You're not going to flee? Your species is mobile enough. You could escape to another galaxy before the seals fail." "That's not how humans work," Kiera replied. "We don't run from problems. We solve them." Over the following days, humanity's greatest minds worked alongside captured hegemony scientists. The seal technology was incredibly complex, a fusion of physics and something that bordered on metaphysics. But slowly, patterns emerged. "It's not just technology, Doctor," Singh reported at one briefing. "It's harmonics." The hegemony structure wasn't arbitrary. Every conquered world, every subjugated species, added a note to a grand symphony that kept the Devourers at bay. "So we need the hegemony structure intact?" General Morrison asked, alarmed. "No," Singh corrected. "We need harmony. Order. But not necessarily their kind of order." Kiera understood. The hegemony had created harmony through domination, forcing every species to sing the same note. But humans had learned long ago that true harmony came from different voices working together. "Begin Phase 3, she ordered. "Full integration protocols. We're not conquering the hegemony. We're recruiting them. Every species, every world, becomes part of a new network. Not subjects, but partners." The Chancellor observed these proceedings with growing fascination. "You're attempting something we never considered. Voluntary cooperation on a galactic scale. It's what humans do," Chen explained. "We're pack animals at heart. We just needed a big enough threat to make the whole galaxy our pack." The real work began. Human diplomats, trained in secret for decades, spread across the galaxy. They didn't come as conquerors but as organizers, bringing species together in a common cause. The SEAL network was rebuilt, not as a hegemony secret but as a shared responsibility. Former enemies worked side by side. The crystalline being's harmonic resonance proved crucial for SEAL stability. The Saurians' industrial might rebuilt failing infrastructures. Even the warrior Vrixians found purpose in guarding the most dangerous SEAL points. But Kiera knew this was only a temporary solution. The SEALs were a bandage on a wound that would never heal. Humanity had won the war against the hegemony, only to inherit an eternal vigil against something far worse. Late one night, she stood on the observation deck of the Times, Persistence *, looking out at the stars. Chen joined her, as she knew he would. "Regrets?" he asked. "No," she answered honestly. "We did what we had to do. Humanity survived. We're free. That's what matters. But now we're guardians of the galaxy. Not exactly what we planned." Kiera smiled. "When has anything ever gone according to plan? We adapt. We overcome. We endure. It's what makes us human. The other species are starting to understand that. The Vrixians actually thanked me yesterday. Said they'd never understood our tactical doctrine until now. We don't fight to win. We fight to change the game itself." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the veil of normal space, ancient horrors pressed against their prison. But between them and the galaxy stood humanity and its new allies. United not by conquest, but by purpose. "You know what the real irony is?" Kiera mused. "The hegemony spent 3,000 years trying to create order through force. We've created more unity in 3 weeks through simple necessity. Crisis has a way of bringing people together," Chen agreed. "Even if those people include sentient crystals and energy beings." An alert chimed on Kiera's communicator. Another SEAL showing stress fractures. Another crisis to manage. Another problem to solve. But she felt no despair, only determination. The hegemony had seen humanity as weak because they could be defeated in battle. They never understood that humans had perfected the art of losing battles to win wars. Now, faced with an enemy that couldn't be defeated, only contained, humanity's greatest strength would be tested. Not their weapons, not their tactics, but their ability to unite others, to find common ground with any species, to build from the ashes of conflict something stronger than what came before. The war was over. The real work was just beginning. 6 months after the fall of the hegemony, the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. The United Galactic Alliance, as the New Order called itself, operated from a massive station built at the intersection of 17 major trade routes. Admiral Kiera stood in the Central Command Center, watching as representatives from 50 different species worked together with an efficiency that would have been impossible under the old regime. "SEAL 7 is showing increased instability," reported Vrixna, a Vrixian who had become one of Kiera's most trusted advisors. "The harmonic resonators are failing faster than predicted." Kiera studied the data flowing across her screens. The ancient SEALs were degrading at an accelerating rate. Despite their best efforts, despite the combined knowledge of every spacefaring species, they were only delaying the inevitable. "How long?" she asked. "At current degradation rates? 6 months, maybe less." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. When the SEALs failed, the Devourers would return. And this time, there would be no ancient technology to stop them. Dr. Singh entered the command center, her expression uncharacteristically excited. "Admiral, we've made a breakthrough. You need to see this." In the research lab, a holographic display showed something that made Kiera's breath catch. It was a map of the galaxy. But not like any map she'd seen before. This showed layers of reality. Dimensions folded and twisted in ways that challenged comprehension. "We've been approaching this wrong," Singh explained. "We've been trying to strengthen the SEALs, to rebuild the ancient barriers. But what if the answer isn't to keep the Devourers out? What if it's to understand why they want in?" The High Chancellor, who had become an unexpected ally in recent months, pulsed with interest. Explain. The Devourers aren't invaders in the traditional sense, Singh continued. They're more like antibodies. They only appear when reality becomes too unstable, when civilizations push too hard against the fundamental laws of physics. She pulled up historical data. Look at the pattern. 3,000 years ago, the ancient races were experimenting with dimensional manipulation, trying to transcend physical reality. That's when the Devourers first appeared. They're not destroyers. They're reality's immune system. Chen leaned forward. So, you're saying we triggered this? The ancient races, I mean? Exactly. And the seals aren't really keeping them out. They're keeping us in, preventing us from destabilizing reality enough to trigger another immune response. Kiera absorbed this information, her tactical mind already exploring possibilities. If they're antibodies, then there must be a way to convince them we're not a threat, to prove we're not the infection they need to eliminate. That's what I've been working on, Singh said. She gestured to a complex equation floating in the air. The Devourers respond to certain energy signatures, the kind produced by dimensional manipulation technology. But what if we could modulate those signatures? Show them we're part of the system, not a threat to it. The High Chancellor's form brightened. You're proposing we evolve, become something that doesn't trigger the immune response. Oaf, not just us, Kiera corrected. The entire galaxy. Every species working together to achieve a harmony that goes beyond anything the hegemony imagined. It was audacious beyond measure. Instead of fighting the Devourers or hiding from them, they would transform themselves into something that could coexist with the fundamental forces of reality. The project that followed made their war against the hegemony look simple by comparison. Every species contributed their unique perspectives and abilities. The crystalline beings provided harmonic frameworks, the energy entities offered insights into non-physical existence. Even the artificial intelligences that some species had created added their computational power to the effort. Humanity's role was what it had always been: coordination. While other species had superior technology or unique abilities, humans had the gift of finding common ground, of making disparate parts work as a whole. Kiera found herself at the center of it all. No longer just a military commander but something new, a conductor of a galactic orchestra. Each species an instrument playing its part in a composition that would determine the fate of all life. The first seal is failing, Vrixna reported during one critical session. We're running out of time. Through the viewing ports, they could see the distortion in space growing stronger. Reality itself seemed to fray at the edges where the Devourers pressed against their ancient prison. Initiate the Harmony Protocol, Kiera commanded. Across the galaxy, every allied world began broadcasting the new frequency pattern Singh's team had developed. It was more than just energy or sound. It was a declaration of intent, a promise written in the fundamental language of the universe itself. We are not invaders, it said. We are not a cancer to be excised. We are part of the whole, threads in the tapestry of existence. The effect was immediate and terrifying. The failing seal didn't just break. It dissolved. The barrier between dimensions vanished, like morning mist. And through the gap came the Devourers. They were impossible to describe in any language designed for three-dimensional beings. They existed in too many dimensions at once, their forms constantly shifting through states of matter and energy that had no names. When they moved, space itself recoiled. But they didn't attack. The lead entity, if such terms even applied, extended something that might have been a sensory organ toward the nearest Alliance vessel. The harmonic frequency washed over it, through it, into dimensions human minds couldn't perceive. For a long moment that lasted either seconds or centuries, the galaxy held its breath. Then the Devourer responded, not in words or thoughts, but in harmonics of its own. A deep, resonant tone that made stars pulse in rhythm and set planets humming in their orbits. They're singing, Dr. Singh whispered in awe. They're adding their voice to the harmony. One by one, the other Devourers joined in. Their song was alien beyond comprehension. notes that existed in mathematical dimensions rather than audible sound. But somehow, impossibly, it fit. The galactic harmony had found its missing piece. The seals across the galaxy didn't break, they transformed. Instead of barriers, they became doorways. Points of interface between dimensional states. The Devourers flowed through them, not as invaders but as explorers, curious about these small beings who had learned to sing in their language. In the command center, Kiera watched the transformation with tears streaming down her face. Not from sadness or fear, but from the sheer beauty of it. The galaxy was becoming something new, something unprecedented, not just an alliance of species, but a fusion of realities. Contact from the lead entity, communications reported. It's attempting to communicate. The message, when it came through, was simple but profound. We have waited. You have learned. The cycle continues. Over the following weeks, the galaxy adapted to its new reality. The Devourers didn't conquer or destroy. They integrated, becoming part of the cosmic symphony. Some took on physical forms to interact with material beings. Others remained in their higher dimensions, serving as bridges to realms of existence previously unimaginable. The Vryxians discovered they could bond with Devourers to enhance their warrior abilities, becoming protectors of dimensional stability. The crystalline beings found their harmonic abilities amplified 1,000-fold. Even humanity discovered new potentials, their gift for adaptation allowing them to serve as translators between the various levels of reality. Kiera stood once again on the observation deck of the Times, Persistence *, but the view had changed dramatically. Space itself seemed more alive, filled with currents and eddies of interdimensional energy. Ships traveled not just between stars but between layers of existence. Chen joined her, as he always did. Did you ever imagine it would end like this? End? Kiera smiled. This isn't an ending, it's a beginning. We thought we were fighting a war for humanity's survival. Turns out we were fighting for the right to evolve. The hegemony would have hated this, Chen mused. All their order and control, and we create harmony through chaos. Not chaos, Kiera corrected. Complexity. There's a difference. Chaos has no pattern. This has a pattern too beautiful for any one mind to comprehend. A young ensign approached with a report. Admiral, we're receiving signals from beyond our galaxy. Other civilizations have detected our harmony. They want to join the song. Kiera took the report, scanning its contents. Already, probes from distant galaxies were arriving. Drawn by the unprecedented fusion of realities, the transformation that had begun with humanity's desperate gambit was spreading beyond their wildest dreams. Prepare diplomatic protocols, she ordered, and expand the harmonic framework to accommodate new voices. The symphony is about to get a lot bigger. 5. As the ensign hurried off, Kiera reflected on the journey that had brought them here. Humanity had entered the galactic stage as underdogs, faced with an empire that seemed invincible. They had won not through superior firepower or numbers, but through the willingness to sacrifice, to plan, to adapt. But most importantly, they had won by refusing to accept victory as the end goal. The hegemony had conquered to rule, humanity had conquered to transform, and in doing so, they had unlocked possibilities that neither species could have imagined alone. The High Chancellor approached, its energy form now interwoven with strands of devourer essence. Admiral, I owe you an apology. For 3,000 years, we maintained the seals through fear and control. You broke them through trust and cooperation. Your species truly is remarkable. Not just our species, Kiera replied. All of us together. That's the real lesson here. No one species has all the answers. But together, we can ask questions that have never been asked before. She looked around the command center, where beings of matter, energy, and dimensions between worked side by side. The war had ended not with conquest but with transformation. The prize hadn't been domination but evolution, and it had all started with a single human woman standing on an auction platform, pretending to be defeated while setting in motion the greatest victory in galactic history. Admiral, Vrixna called out. The Andromedans are responding to our harmony. They're asking if we're the species that defeated entropy itself. Kiera laughed, the sound carrying across dimensions. Tell them we're the species that learned entropy was just another voice, waiting to join the choir. And we're always recruiting new singers. The galaxy sang on, its harmony growing richer with each passing moment. And at its heart, humanity continued to do what they did best, bringing others together, finding common ground in the most unlikely places, and turning certain defeat into unimaginable victory. The war was over. The song had just begun, and somewhere in the space between spaces, the devourers hummed along. No longer antibodies fighting an infection, but white blood cells protecting a body that had finally learned it was whole.